And clouds in downtown Seattle. I'm Lisa Brooks.
From Puyallup to Pinehurst, this is KIRO Radio, 97.3 FM. News and talk, powered by the Pacific Northwest.
The Big Lead is brought to you by 3010 Weight Loss for Life.
The Dori Monson Show on KIRO Radio. This is The Big Lead.
Coming to you from the Carter Subaru Studio, streaming on Facebook Live. Welcome to the big show. So Jenny Durkin's giving her State of the City speech right now, and she's talking about free college. Yay! Seattle, where everything is free. And then, as I heard in Lisa Brooks' newscast right there, Jenny Durkin says, if we give the kids free college, that frees up their money to spend on food and books. Or it frees up their money so that they can buy Wade and the latest generation iPhone. They always have money for that. We don't need to free up money for those things. But every time I hear people talk about free college here in Seattle, I will remind everybody that it's not free. It is screwing over taxpayers to pay for other people's kids. And that, in the mind of Jenny Durkin and her ilk, that is benevolence. You want to be benevolent, Jenny Durkin? Write the tuition checks yourself out of your personal savings account. But don't tell us how generous Seattle is with all this free stuff when all it is taking people's money to give to other people's children. It's an insane concept, but I know you need that concept in order to remain politically viable. And in fact, that's a perfect tease for what we have coming up at 12:30 at the bottom of the hour. I heard about this kid. He's 18 years old from Idaho. He's got a pickup truck with a snowplow blade on the front. He came to Seattle last week during the snowstorm. You will not believe how much money this 18-year-old kid made in 4 days during the Seattle snowstorm. But it's an example, and we are going to talk to him at 12:30. It's an example that if you are willing to out-hustle everybody, you can make a great living in America. You don't have to have a college degree. All you need is a pickup truck and some initiative. And this 18-year-old, like I said, wait till you hear what kind of money he's going to make this year, mowing lawns in the summertime and plowing snow in the wintertime. And he doesn't need other people to pay for his free stuff because he's working for it. But, so I'll introduce you to this young man.
Call Mr. Plow, that's my name. That name again is Mr. Plow.
And we will hear what he did out here in Seattle last week with his pickup truck and a plow blade. And with all that as mere prelude, let's get to The Big Lead.
The Big Lead. Top story.
People on the left are really weird. Like the new mania on the left with state legislatures in blue states across the country is they are gleeful about killing babies now. And yes, I mean lighten up the sky in New York City, shining the bright spotlights to congratulate. And I'm not just talking about the post-birth, like the Virginia governor, but all these late-term abortion bills. And their argument is, well, it's a private decision between a mother and a doctor if they want to kill a baby. And what's weird about all of this is here in Washington, the people on the left want to force parents to give their children the mumps, measles vaccinations. And there's a bill that is moving ahead rapidly in the legislature that would, because right now people can get exemptions if they have philosophical concerns. You would still be able to get an exemption if you have a medical or a religious reason. But right now, if people have a philosophical concern. Now, I will tell you, my wife and I vaccinated our daughters. I think it's a good idea. I don't buy the arguments of the anti-vax crowd. But I think it's very strange to have government say, we're going to tell parents that they must inject something into their kids that mom and dad don't want to inject. That is not a decision between a mother and a doctor. We only do that for killing babies. But if a mother and a doctor say, well, we've got some philosophical concerns about vaccinations, and like I said, I know a lot of people disagree with me on this, and I couldn't care less if people disagree with me. It's fine. You're free to your opinion. All I'm saying is if somebody has decided I don't want to inject that into my kid, they should be free to do so with a huge, huge caveat. If you don't inject your kid with a vaccination, I don't think you should be able to send the kid to a public school. Because that's why we have these outbreaks. Because there are unvaccinated kids at schools and it's spreading. And if you want to homeschool, if you have a private school where they say no vaccinations is fine, then that should be where you send your kid. But I believe if you're going to send your kid to a public school, that the kid should be vaccinated because we had largely eradicated measles from this country. And then, according to the New York Times, it had a resurgence in a illegals detention camp in Arizona in 2016, and now it's back. And I think that, again, no public school if you choose to not vaccinate your kid. But I do think that's a choice. And it's just interesting. Pro-choice people. Kill baby? Yeah, that's mom's choice. Vaccinate the kid. No, that's government's choice. Government will decide. And here is a state rep who says, yes, we should mandate that parents vaccinate their kids. This is Paul Harris.
No, I think it's the right thing, and I think we'll see the vast majority agree with me. I find it kind of an odd argument, to be quite frank, that you don't want to be vaccinated against these diseases that other countries are clamoring for.
And I think it's an odd argument as well. I just don't think it's government's role to mandate that parents inject their kids. And the representative says that the public outpouring is squarely on the side of the lawmakers who want to mandate this.
I've heard from several families with kids who have compromised immune systems that either had heart transplants or livers or a lot of them who are in kids who are in cancer treatments that they can't be vaccinated are very concerned.
And our governor, Jay Inslee, he's weighing in on this as well.
The damage is so significant and the vaccination so effective. It's a very effective vaccine that there really is a right decision for all of us to call for the protection of all of our children.
Think about that in context with late-term abortion, though. That can you imagine the left's heads would explode if Inslee and state legislature said, well, for the health of the children, minutes before birth, we're not going to allow moms because they're afraid they're going to get depressed. We're not going to allow moms to kill them. It is so bizarre. What the left wants government to mandate vaccinations, but government should be hands off when it comes to killing babies. But I have long since stopped trying to figure out any consistency among the left around here. Next up in the big lead.
The Big Lead, Bizarro World.
And then there's another battle that's going on. The EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, here in Washington State, they have made a ruling that bans the dumping of raw sewage into Puget Sound. And a bunch of environmental activist groups say, we're behind this. No dumping of raw sewage. And there's some tugboat companies, and they're saying, well, we already have some pretty strict regulations. We have to be 3 miles offshore, but, yeah, we can flush our tanks into the Sound. Yeah, I don't think you should be able to flush, paper, toilet paper, other products like that. That needs to all be filtered out. But it's just odd to me. Remember about 3 years ago when the mismanagement of Dow Constantine and King County, they dumped 250 million gallons of raw sewage into Puget Sound at that Discovery Park treatment plant. 250 million gallons. And then months later, they did an investigation and they said, didn't hurt the Sound at all. It cleansed itself. So when government dumps 250 million gallons of raw sewage into the Sound, they say, it's no big deal. Cleaned up. Just flushed itself out. Just 2 weeks ago, 19,400 gallons of wastewater went into Puget Sound right off of Richmond Beach because a pump station lost power. No big deal. But now a bunch of environmental activists are telling people on boats, but you can't dump your human waste into the Sound. Why is it when government pours 250 million gallons in, it's no big deal and nobody's fined and nobody loses their job and the Sound cleans itself, but a tugboat operator wants to empty their tanks, as they've done for well over 100 years. Then they said, no, Sound can't handle that. Really? What about, is human waste that different from fish waste? I mean, there are probably billions of creatures in our seas, in our oceans. They're all pooping and piddling, and the oceans handle that fine. But if a human being poops or piddles, then they have to find the tugboat companies. Again, I'm just having trouble finding consistency here. Next up in the big lead.
The Big Lead, top trending.
I tell you what, this Jussie Smollett story, it's over. The guy hired the 2 Nigerians to beat him up, to fake a hate crime. I hear all the time from the left how hateful America is, but if that's the case, then why do they have to keep faking hate crimes? Wouldn't there be some real hate crimes instead of having to hire actors to do it? And it really is an indictment. Look, Jussie Smollett, he's yet another example of a guy who let his obsession with Donald Trump destroy his life. Destroyed his life, destroyed his career. What they now believe is that you've seen the letter that he received a week before the hate crime, where it was letters cut out of a magazine and pasted onto paper to make some racial and sexual slurs against him. And apparently, according to the Nigerian brothers, Smollett was upset that the fake hate crime letter didn't get more attention, so he had to go to the fake hate crime bleach and noose so he could finally get some attention. So he's crazy, and he's got Trump derangement syndrome, and he wanted to allow somebody to destroy his career because he couldn't handle his own brain. But the media, this is more an indictment of the media, and how when this story first broke, they wanted it to be true so desperately.
Beaten bitten with a noose around his neck and hospitalized. Empire star Jussie Smollett was the victim of a vicious, racist, and homophobic attack.
His attackers hurled racial and homophobic slurs.
Two people yelled racist and homophobic slurs.
Racial and homophobic slurs.
Not only homophobia, we're talking about racism. We're talking about hate with steroids.
They are looking for two suspects who were apparently wearing Make America Great Again hats.
The offenders uttered, "This is MAGA country."
The hate crime went down early this morning in Chicago.
Officials are investigating the alleged assault as a hate crime.
And now police say they're investigating this as a possible hate crime.
Anyone attacked in a hate crime like this is an outrage.
This is stomach-turning, mind-boggling information. It's out of control.
Yeah, the media is out of control. The media wanted this because the media despises the president, and they were gleeful. MAGA hat wearing people yelling racial and sexual slurs. Oh, they couldn't get enough of it. But let me tell you how the New York Times, the Virginia governor who wore a hood and KKK robe or blackface. We don't know which one he is in the picture. And so then that focused attention on the lieutenant governor. Two women have accused the Virginia lieutenant governor of sexual assault. Here's how the New York Times covered that. Justin Fairfax, a Democrat who's drawn national attention, issued a statement denying an unsubstantiated allegation of sexual assault. So when two women accuse this guy of sexual assault, the New York Times immediately calls it an unsubstantiated allegation. When an actor accuses two Trump supporters of a racist, homophobic attack, here's how the New York Times covered that. Jussie Smollett, one of the stars of the TV show Empire, was attacked in Chicago by two people who yelled racial and homophobic slurs and wrapped a rope around his neck. Really? The guy accused of raping two women, the New York Times called it unsubstantiated allegation of sexual assault. The guy who faked a hate crime, the New York Times didn't qualify it as unsubstantiated or as an allegation. They just cited it as fact. But there's no media bias. That's the same news organization there. And that is your big lead for today.
The Big Lead on KIRO Radio.
I'm really looking forward to introducing you to a young man who, through pure hustle, made an unbelievable amount of money during the Seattle snowstorm last week. We'll talk to him next on the Dori Monson Show.